Anyway, you can start recording.
Okay.
Um, I'll call it a disclaimer. The reason why I chose this topic is because this is something that I think I won't use the word struggle, but this is my daily life. It's something that I go through on a daily basis, and that's one of the reasons why I chose this because sometimes you think you're doing it right and you're doing it well, but you also need to hear from other people and share with other people to get more ideas. Because I think almost everybody struggles with work-life balance. Almost everybody. But excuse me, some people have tips and tricks, you know. So I'm going to be sharing mine, and I would encourage every other person as well to share theirs because I might be able to learn one or two from what you do. So when you talk about work-life balance, and please feel free to jump in if you have questions because it's more like a chat. Yeah. When we talk about work-life balance, I think the first thing that comes to mind is thinking about the things that we think we need to balance. So what are the things we need to balance? If we take like 20 seconds now, if you have a paper and a pen, or you have a phone or something that you can type on, just take some time to think about what are the things that you need to balance in your life. You have work, you have family, holiday. Some people sleep, medical, balancing your health. What are
Extended
the
family.
extended family? Thank you. What are the things you think you need to balance? If you can scribble it down somewhere in like 10 seconds. I've given ideas. We've called work, we've called family, we talked about health, extended family, sleep, holidays. So for some people could even be eating well. You know. Yeah. So when we do that, then try to see if you can prioritize those things. So because for you to balance something, you need to know what you're balancing and how to balance it. If you're balancing two things, so we say work life, but life encompasses so many things, and work could encompass so many things. So, do you want to give it 50-50? That's the question. At the end of the day, it's a balance, yeah? So, do you want to give 50-50? Do you think if you give work 70 and give your life 30, it will be balanced? What might be balanced for me might not be balanced for you. So, it is kind of individual. So, if you're able to, first of all, list out the things that you think in life you need to balance and prioritize them. Self-care. Thank you. Very important. Self-care, husband, relationships, investments. Hey, see something. Are you people chin chum chin? Now you think about how you balance all these things. How do you prioritize all these things? We need to put them in context. And that's what will help us decide how we balance them out. God God, it's not God's intent for us to continue to work constantly. It's not God's intent. If we look at the Bible, if we open the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 5, I'll see if I can open it on my phone. The book of Dethrone Your Enemies. Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 12. I'll read. It says, "You must keep the Sabbath." Okay, so first of all, I'm reading from Easy Version, which is very, very different from the King James Version. It says, "You must keep the Sabbath a special day, like the Lord your God commanded." Some other versions will say, "Keep the Sabbath day holy." The one that we have on the screen says, "Observe the Sabbath day, keep it as holy as the Lord your God commanded you."
And this one is the correct
So
one because this is King James.
Which one is incorrect?
All others are counterfeits.
But some others explain in
Oh,
layman terms.
it's Celestina's opinion.
It says keep the Sabbath day holy. So God has not designed us to continue working continuously. It means that there's supposed to be a time when we should rest. There should be a time when we should do other things in life. If we also look at the book of Psalm chapter 127. Elizabeth, you read your version, I'll read my version.
Psalm 127,
Psalm
verse
127, verse 2.
It is vain for you to rise up early, to sit up late, to eat the bread of sorrows, for so he gives his beloved sleep.
Mhm. My version says, it is a waste of time to get up early and stay up late, trying to make a living. The Lord provides for those he loves, even while they are sleeping.
Hey, what version is that?
ERV.
Wow, that's a
It's
nice
deep.
one.
It is a waste of time to get up early and stay up late, trying to make a living. The Lord provides for those he loves, even while they are sleeping. So the God wants us to work. Yeah. But the Bible also says that we're not made to continuously work. Because as Christians, there is a time that we need to stop. There's a time we need to rest. There's a time we need to do other things. Because it is a waste of time to continuously work to make a living. Because the Lord provides for those that he loves. Even while they are sleeping, he provides. Let's look at another Bible verse. 2 Thessalonians chapter 3. Second Thessalonians chapter 3, verses 10 to 12. Elizabeth, please read.
Chapter 3, verse what?
10 to 12. Second Thessalonians 3, 10 to 12.
Even while we were with you, we gave you this command: those unwilling to work will not get to eat. Yet we hear that some of you are living idle lives, refusing to work and meddling in other people's businesses. We command such people and urge them in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ to settle down and work to earn their own living. As for the rest of you, dear brothers and sisters, never get tired of doing good. Full of originals, that one.
So this was Apostle Paul talking to the Thessalonians, telling them that they have to work. I'll read my version. It says, when we were with you, we gave you this rule. Whoever will not work should not be allowed to eat. We hear that some people in your group refuse to work. They are doing nothing except being busy in the lives of others. Our instruction to them is to stop bothering others, to start working and earn their own food. It is by the authority of the Lord Jesus Christ that we are urging them to do this, which means we have to work, but we must rest because the Lord provides for those he loves while they sleep. So this here justifies the need for work-life balance. You have to work, but you have to rest because there are other things in life, to balance. So for me, I know a couple of people know me quite well, but I'm happy to share what I do so that when we start talking, because the tips I'll be sharing are things that have worked for me. But you might not resonate with it if you don't understand what I do. So everybody knows my name, Mamo. I I live in Australia. Excuse me. I live in Australia. I am married. I have three kids, very active kids. My oldest is 12, the second is 10, and the youngest is 7. And you know what it is to have children in twin years when they want to talk to you every time, but they tell you nothing. So they crave attention. Um, my kids are very, very active in basketball. So I have to take my kids for training every day. At least one child has training for 1.5 to 2 hours every day, including Sunday morning before church. I have a husband to take care of as well.
Right. Even on
Uh,
Sunday.
even on Sunday, yes, even on
Okay.
Sunday. I work with a government agency as an environment manager. My work is a little bit flexible, which is one of the reasons why I took the job. It allows me work from home and then go to the office. But when I have to go to the office, I drive an hour, 30 minutes to the office and an hour, 30 minutes back home. So 3 hours I'm driving.
Wow.
I am currently enrolled for another master's degree in environmental engineering in another state. So I am schooling, I am working full time, I have a husband and three very active kids who go to school and play basketball. And they play basketball for the suburb and play basketball for the state. So different trainings. So this is a sketch of my life. So so you understand when I said this is something that I struggle with on a daily
Mm.
basis. And that's one of the reasons why I chose this particular topic because I know there are many people like me as well. So one of the things that has helped me when you ask yourself, how do you balance all these things? And sometimes people ask me, how do you do it? And I smile. The first thing is time management. Time management. I would ask everyone here now, do you have a schedule? Do you have a schedule? Do you on Monday you wake up 7 a.m., Tuesday you wake up 9 a.m., Wednesday you wake up 4 a.m., on Thursday, anywhere belle face? Do you have a schedule? So
Yes,
that's one thing I
I have a
found.
mental one.
That's one thing I found that helps me. Having a schedule. Pick a time to wake up. Pick a time to exercise. Pick a time to do your work. Pick a time to relax. And when you pick that time, commit to it. You have to commit to it. You're training yourself. It's not just so that you get organized, it's so that you train yourself. Now I'll get very practical and I'll give examples for me. Um, you like when because my day-to-day life is very busy, and there was a time when I found it difficult to get very to include physical exercise in my schedule. Then I decided I'll go to bed a little earlier so I can wake up earlier and then go to the gym. So I go to the gym Mondays to Fridays in the morning, and by 5:30 I'm in the gym because I wake up at 5 o'clock. But prior to when I started going to the gym, I used to go to bed anytime and then wake up maybe around 6 or 6:30. But I said, look, if I go to bed an hour earlier, I can I can wake up an hour earlier and go to the gym. And then I know that I've gotten some kind of physical exercise in my day. So that's trying to bring in my health on just understanding how you schedule everything that you have to do. Now that might not be your case. You might have something else you need to fit in, but you need to have proper time management. For those of us that work, when you get to work, do you have a to-do list? Do you have a list of things you want to do? And if you have a list of things to do you prioritize them? If you go to work, if you're the type that goes to work, like go to physical office, not just working from home, you can get distracted sometimes with colleagues coming, hi, how you doing? I love your hair. Oh, you nice shirt. Things like that. It's not bad to socialize, but don't get carried away by those things. If you have a schedule that you have to follow, and you know, okay, I'm in this office for 8 hours, and these are the things I have to do, and you prioritize them. I have 9 things on my list of things to do. time yourself to say, okay, from this time to this time to this, I'll do this. Now, that is not to say that you won't give a little bit of wiggle room. Of course, things happen, there are unexpected things that will come in. There are times when I've had to move some things from my to-do list from one day to another day. But that's the essence of prioritizing, because if you prioritize, you would have addressed the things that are most important first. So if you're moving things to the next day, if there are things that you that are not as important on the list. Now, if you prioritize what you need to do at work, chances are slim that your work time will spill over to your family time.
Mm.
For those that work at home,
I think for me, it happens the other way. Like when I prioritize things, maybe it's for me to learn the measure of things I prioritize, because I found out that when I go with prioritizing work first, then I found out that I'll usually overwork, because so long as I'm not finished, I don't get up. And then I'm
yeah, but
finding
then
out, yeah,
maybe your to-do list is not what's the word I'll use now? I don't want it's
it's not
have you heard
realistic.
of it? It's not realistic, exactly. I wanted to use the word smart. Smart goals. You've heard of smart, right? Specific, measurable, achievable,
Mm.
realistic, and time based. Yeah. It's sometimes we'll tell ourselves, oh, we'll do 7 things. And you cannot do the 7 things. Why are you putting them on the list? Make it a realistic goal. That is what I want to do today. Make it very realistic and work towards it. Don't overstretch it. Because my sister, if you finish the work today, what will you do tomorrow? Eh, if you finish the work today, what will you do tomorrow? Because the work will still keep coming. You know that, right? So you prioritize it. Because your work time has to be your work time, and your family time has to be your family time. That demarcation needs to be there. If you work from home, when it is after maybe one meeting and you've done a couple of things, we have this attitude of getting up and then getting distracted in the house and doing other things. Then by the time the kids come back from school, or by the time your husband comes back from work, and then he needs your attention or they need your attention, then you realize, hey, I've not done this thing I'm supposed to do. That is when you will sink into work. Proper time management, I found, really, really helps. It really, really helps. Sometimes I use apart from my Outlook calendar, I also use my phone calendar as well to schedule times with alarms that prompt me to do certain things. So that way, things don't slip off. If I have an assessment to submit, I give myself time. I say, okay, that's the time. Remind me to start this assignment. Remind me to do this. Remind me to do that. And it just prompts me to do everything. For those of us that do businesses and maybe people that have shops, you know, you go to your shop. When you do businesses, it's a lot trickier. It's a lot trickier because sometimes I've heard people say, oh, at certain times, that's when my customers will come. It's a lot trickier and it has to be properly managed. So how do you manage it? You still have to create that demarcation. If peradventure there's a certain time that you know that your customers come to the shop, then maybe the other time is what you use for other things. But you just have to balance it out because one thing should not suffer for the other. We read in the Bible verses that we read, earlier, God wants us to work, but he also wants us to rest. He wants us to do other things. So we need to create that time. Another thing that I found that works for me as well is discipline. Is discipline. We have to be able to discipline ourselves. It is very, very hard. It is very hard. And some people are not blessed with good managers. It's okay to say no sometimes. It's okay to say no. Some people don't know how to say no. When they're asked, oh, you do this, oh, you do this, you do that, you do this. You should know your capacity, know what you can take in, and be disciplined with it. Contentment is also another thing. Sometimes, and I think this one is not more for people who work because, yeah, maybe people who work per hour, people who work per hour, it can be very, very, who are paid per hour. It can be very, very tricky sometimes. You work Monday to Friday and you maybe it's now time to spend with family. Then you now see this shift. Hey, you look at the money. Oh my God, this thing is tempting. We have to be able to decide if that is what we want. I'm not saying that it is wrong to take it, but make sure before you take it, you have created that balance. You have thought about it. Sometimes people fall into issues with that with work-life balance because of lack of contentment. So you have to work. You have bills to pay. Nobody's going to pay your bills for you. You have bills to pay. But we have to put that at the forefront of our minds that even God Himself created the world, and on the seventh day, He rested. God did not rest because He was tired. The rest is to tell us that we need to rest. It's to set a precedent. That is what it is. On the Sabbath day, you rest. When no man shall work, he shall rest. So some people work on Saturdays, some people work on Sundays, which is fine, but we just need to be sure that we're creating that balance. It might not necessarily be about the day, but it's about the balance. If we're sure that we have created the balance. So, like I said at the beginning, you list those things that you need to balance. And if you say that your work is taking 30%, for example, and your family is taking 50%, and you have 20% to all other things, before you pick that shift, make sure that your work is not taken out of your family time or taken out of that 20% for the other ones. Be sure that you are eating in that time you have allocated for your work. Things change sometimes, yes, but you have to find a way to balance it out. Contentment. I think I've talked about boundaries already. We need to set boundaries. If you work, if you work, it is you are in the best position to set those boundaries. After work is after work. Forget it. If you have a work phone, drop your work phone somewhere. It is after work. Close your computer. Do something. If you don't have anything to do, just sit down and just be staring at your television. Just create that balance because you will not know what that thing will do for you. It just settles your mind. It settles your mind, and that's one thing that I found that works for me. So for me, even when I'm working from home, once it is time for me to close, I close. That is it. I close the computer. If you like, send me mail. Let the thing be doing na tomorrow I go look am. Because I have closed, I have closed. Even if my manager calls me, I'll tell him I've closed. I've closed. I dropped the phone. The days I take my kids for training, sometimes they have training for 30. I try to start earlier. It's on my calendar. So if you try to send me an email and you check my calendar, you will see it there. In his basketball training, it is there. I've closed because I started earlier. But that is for me. That has that kind of job that is a little bit flexible. If your job is not as flexible as that, and it's maybe probably 8 to 5, it is 5 o'clock. My sister closed because the work will be there tomorrow. But there are times when there are emergencies, well understood. But don't make it a norm. Because the moment you make it a norm, you are eating into that percentage that you have ascribed to family or your sleep or your work or how or the long list we had at the beginning, that long list, you are eating into something else. So we should always have that in mind that whenever we overwork, we are eating into something else. And we need to have that mental calculation in our heads. It's important to make time for family. Make time for family. It is very, very important. This is one of the reasons why we need that work-life balance. Is because we need to create time for family. We need to create time for ourselves. We need to create time for our spiritual life. Create time to speak to God. Create time to eat well. Create time to exercise. Create time to sleep. Create time to go for medical checkups. There's so much more in life. This work that you are doing, God forbid anything happens. They advertise position. To advertise position. So we always need to, once we create that percentage we are giving to our work, we look at our scenario, and as I said, it's it's not a one size fits all thing, but the strategy can be the same. The things that I need to balance in my life might be different from the things you need to balance in your life. But you need to actually list those things down. So what are the things that are important to you? And if to make it easy for you to decide, you know, last week somebody asked me a question. The person said, "What is your end game?" And I'm asking everyone here too. And I want us to unmute and answer this question. Now, we are Christians, and most times when people ask that question, "What's your end game?" the answer is always to make heaven. What's your end game on earth? I'm waiting. No answer.
If you don't call him, you don't know this
Mamo,
man.
what was the question you asked?
I said, somebody asked me a question this last weekend. The person said, "What is your end game?"
Hello?
Can you hear?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Ayo, we can
Yes.
hear you.
Mm-hmm. So somebody asked me last week, and the person said, "What is your end game?" And I said, as Christians, yeah, we're very fast to say our end game is to make heaven. But in this context of work-life balance, I'm asking the question now, what is your end game? I'm asking generally. If anybody can share, what is your so when I say what is your end game, what is that thing that is non-negotiable for you? I'll give you an example. For some people, it's financial freedom.
Mm.
They don't want to work for anybody. That's their end game. Like all these things, you go to work every day. Okay, so look at me talking about myself, saying, I've come back to school and I'm getting a second master's. What is my end game? Where am I headed?
Mom,
So if you,
if I may come in.
oh, the line is
Hello?
breaking up. What did you say?
Yes, I was going to say that for me,
Mm.
what I would see as my end game is that I used to tell some of my friends that when is the day that okay,
It's important to tell her that it's not clear what she
probably
Yeah,
okay, today
I
is
thought it was
the day
just
I'm
me.
going
So I was
to
just trying to.
die. I
Sorry,
want
Ayo, we can't hear
to
you
be
properly.
able to look back and be happy.
Okay.
She wants to look back and be happy.
That,
Yeah, she wants to look back and be happy.
okay, I've impacted
And you've impacted lives.
Ayo, there's an angle where your mouth goes to that we hear you.
Mm.
lives. I want to sure by I can smile to death happily.
Oh dear.
So,
Ayo, we can't hear you. The message.
if
If I can,
I'm
if I can,
going to about
Okay, but if I can pick the little ones ahead, you said you want to look back and you want to be happy, and then you want to look back and see that you have impacted lives. That's a very, very good one. So if we're able to think about what our end game is now and say, okay, all these things I'm doing, I'm working. At the moment, maybe I'm working so place. In the next, we are very quick to think about, oh, in the next 1 year, next 5 years, I want to be here. What is your end game? And if you think about what your end game is, then you look back and ask yourself, am I working towards it? Because most times I realize that many people, when you ask them, what is your end game? What is your non-negotiable? Most of the time, it has nothing to do with work primarily. So then you ask yourself, if your end game is here and you're spending more than half your time here, that is because you're trying to make a living. That gives you the reason to balance it out. That will be your why, because sometimes we need the why to be motivated. We need the why to be motivated. For some people, their end game is maybe to get to the highest, the peak of their career. Yeah, that's fine. If that is your end game, yes, then that will determine how much the percentage you would give to your work. But trust me, your work cannot have 100%. It won't have 100%. And it's just like, when you put something on a weight scale, if your work is taking so much than all other parts of your life, it will definitely tilt to one side. So we need to be able to balance it out. So I guess the summary of everything I'm saying is we need to find a way to balance it. And the baseline of balancing work life is time management and prioritization. We need to have good time management. We need to prioritize things that we need to do. There's certain, if you write down things that you do, I guess two things that I want everyone here to do. One is have a think about what your end game is, aside from making heaven. Have a think about what your end game is. And then ask yourself if you're actually working towards your end game. If your end game is towards the work banner, then that justifies why you probably give work a little more time. But then you need to make sure that the other things do not suffer. If your end game is towards life, just like Ayo has said, looking back to see that she has impacted lives, that might not necessarily have anything to do with the core job that she does, but that can have something to do with an NGO. For me, my end game has nothing to do with my work. My end game is very similar to Ayo's. My end game is being able to help people around me. And that is the reason why I've been a member of a Rotary Club for more than 12 or 14 years now. And I'm actually the vice president and the next president of the Rotary Club here in Australia, because it's towards the goal I want. And I find time to faction that time into it, because that is one thing that I do, that I look back and it gives me that satisfaction. So you need to be able to balance it out. You need to be able to balance it out. And most importantly, you need to make time for family, make time for yourself, self-care, make time to pray. Make time to pray. This is very, 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 very important, because we could do all these things and at the end of the day, it will still not work. We need to pray to God to help us balance it out, to open our eyes, to give us that vision, to see where we're headed, and be able to balance it out. Have proper time management. The second thing that I want us to do as well is, for this new week, at the end of the day, every day, before you go to bed, you sit down and write out everything that you have done that day. If you can keep timelines, that'll be good. So you say, I woke up 5 a.m. I went to the gym. I got to the gym 5:30. I was in the gym till 6:30. Got back home, took a shower, got the kids ready for school, went to work. At work, I did this. I came back home. I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. If you're able to list that at the end of every day, then maybe after a week, sit down and look at that list. Meanwhile, you have written your list of priorities. You have written your list of things that you need to balance. And you have decided what your end game is. Now look at that list and then ask yourself, compare that list of what you have done in a week to the things you need to balance and see if they made their way into your day. If they didn't, then there's something wrong. It means there's certain things you need to take out. Sometimes we need to deprive ourselves of certain things to fit in certain things. So if you write your list and on your list of things that you want to prioritize or your list of things that you need to balance, you have self-care. And you look at all the things you did in 1 week and you can't find self-care, then there's something wrong. Your self-care could be anything. Your self-care could be just maybe watching a movie. It could be maybe just taking a walk. It could be anything. But you need to have a look at it and see. If it is not there, then you need to balance it out. It means that something is suffering. Something is taking that time off that thing. It could be that you just stay on Instagram. Some people stay on Instagram for 2 hours, 3 hours. Maybe if you reduce this to 30 minutes a day, you would have an extra 1 hour, 30 minutes to do some other things. Some people, chit chat and talk and talk about something. We as women would like to talk about other people. Maybe if you reduce that time you used to talk about other people and fit in some other things, it will balance it out. But I guess the point is have that list. Have list out things that you want to balance and look at your end game. And then just take a week and assess yourself. Write it out. You will be shocked at the things that we do that are not meant to be on our list at all. And once you're able to rejig it, that's what helps you come up with a schedule for yourself. That's what helps you come up with a framework for yourself. Sometimes, you might not follow your schedule, word for word or verbatim, but you give yourself a little bit of wiggle room and then you train yourself. You train yourself. It's just like children who get used to iPads. The first time you take the iPad off the child will cry and the child will think, oh, my life is about to end. I cannot live without the iPad. But it's a lie. It's a lie. A time will come when you keep the iPad and the child will forget that there's something called iPad. It is the training. You train yourself, At the moment we train ourselves with that list, you realize that you're able to balance it all. And people will start asking you, oh, how do you do it? How are you able to fit everything in? Because you've decided to take some things that are not important, some things that don't make impact in your end game, some things that are not bringing food to your table. You're just taking them out. They're not on the list. So why waste your time with them and then put other things on the list? So I hope with these few words of mine, I've been able to convince you and not confuse you that work-life balance is important. So happy to take questions, chats, ideas, because I'm looking for more ideas, so please. So if anyone has anything to add, anything to suggest. Mimi, I know you've been waiting for this one.
Mimi,
Are you still writing?
tell us something now, Mimi.
Mimi is writing.
Did you hear me laughing? For me, I think one thing I really like about or I've learned from here, I'm going to come with a learning point because I came to learn rather than to ask questions. I came to learn. So for me, I think one of my takeaways will be what's my end goal. It's something that I've never really thought about, like sat down to think about and then probably put in words. But yeah, that would be something to think about and work on. And of course, time management is another thing for me. It's another big one for me. I don't think I'm the greatest time manager, but yeah, it's something to work on as well. Thank you very much, Mamode.
Thank you too for sharing. Okay, does anyone have questions, suggestions? I want to pick brains too, Elizabeth, do you want to share? How do you cope?
I have a question, Mamo.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
First and foremost, I really want to appreciate the class. Thank you for sparing time to explain in detail what work-life balance is and how it affects our relationships. For people like us who have teenagers in the house and you want them to participate in what's going on at home after school work or when they're on the holidays, you want to engage them. Okay, this is something you're going to do, and this is the time for you to do it. And they tell you they have their own schedule. Like you have said, they have their own schedule. You have your schedule as a mother. Okay, why don't you clean the kitchen on a Saturday in the morning? And they tell you, oh, I want to clean the kitchen in the evening, or I would prefer to clean the kitchen when you're done with the kitchen, and that's not early in the morning. And becomes contradictory to what you want to do or what you want to achieve. Or you want to wash the bedroom and they tell you, oh, why don't I do it in the evening? Because they have their own schedule. How do you now, and you don't crisis in your home, you don't want issues, and you know how they think. So how do you inculcate this work-life balance relationship? Yes, in our kids too. Thank you.
It's hard. I will not lie. It is hard. My oldest is not yet a teenager. She's still a twin. They call them twin. Between 10 and I think 13. Yeah, they call them twin. I think um it depends on the child, to be honest. But what I found that works is explaining your why. Children of nowadays, they don't just want you to dish out instructions. Even my 7-year-old, you tell him to go and do this, and you say, Mommy, can I tell you something? But why do I have to do it? Why do I have to do so? They want that explanation. I think the first thing I would say is maybe explaining your why. So explain to say, I need you to clean this kitchen this morning because. So when you put that because, it's like you're trying to make them see reasons with you. They might, but they might not. But I think it's a step to to letting them understand how it affects your schedule. So I need you to clean this kitchen this morning because I need this kitchen clean to cook. And I need to cook this morning so that in the evening I can do this. Okay? Some might accept, some might not accept. But the other thing I've found that works as well is choosing my battles for your sanity. Sometimes you might have to rejig your schedule for these children because sometimes they come with their own agenda. And unfortunately, it just destabilizes yours. And yes, you have to reorganize. I'll give you an example of my own self. As at last week, I had planned, today, Sunday 27th. The only thing I'm doing is taking them for basketball training, come back and just go to church. The moment I come back, I will sleep and do my assessment because I have an assessment due 11:59 p.m. today. And then one comes with an invitation letter. I have a party, Mommy, you're taking me. Jehovah. This is not supposed to be my plan. I have the choice to say, oh no, you won't attend the party. But the person is a very close friend of his. So now I have to go back and reorganize my calendar. So what am I doing? I have decided that in these 2 hours, 30 minutes, when I'm going to be an Uber driver, I will go there and I will drop him there. I will sit in the car with my laptop and I will do my assessment. So that when I come back home with him, I can take a nap. With that nap that I wanted to take. Well, all I'm saying is I had to reorganize the whole schedule so that I can just make ends meet, thereby choosing my battles. I can decide to say, no, you're not going for this party. But that is what invites crisis. Because then you have a very, very, unhappy child in the house who really, you'd ask yourself, okay, so to what gain? To what gain have I deprived this child of attending his very close mate's party?
Mm.
So it's balance, It's harder with teenagers because they have a mind of their own. I honestly, I don't know how their brains are wired to do this. And it is also a thing of prayer. It is a thing of prayer, to put it in prayer, that God should teach them. But I found that explaining to them your why works wonders. Rather than saying, go and do this. You see, I need you to do this now. Because if you do this now, this is what we can do. So they see the bigger picture. And that's the way they are taught in school, to see the bigger picture. So maybe if we do that helps us. But Fatih, I hope that kind of helps a little.
Sister Fati, this is what we do in the house.
Mm.
We have our Saturday set aside. We call it our tribe meetings. So we call it the panel where all the children can also contribute. So this is like no more strike, holding a meeting. We had one yesterday evening. It was very interesting. So we allow the children to brainstorm areas in the house where everybody contributes. So they said school, they said work for mommy and daddy, activities like they have to go for their sporting events, activities like birthdays that come up, laundry, house cleaning, their grooming. Like we mentioned a lot of things. So we started with yesterday, the one we emphasized was school, where we talked about timing, how they were finding school, and then talked about how, because my 13-year-old, how she woke up in the morning. I appreciate it too. People like us, we didn't used to have time to dress ourselves. Or my 13-year-old can be dressing herself for 1 hour in the morning before school. And by the time she comes back, even me myself, I won't lie, I like what I see. I'm like, how did I raise a girl that likes to look really good like this? But the problem is I need her to come out and make sure that all her siblings have their lunch boxes ready. So yesterday we agreed together on timelines in the morning. They all agreed. I said, because we must pray before we leave the house. So we brainstorm what's the best time which everybody should be sitting to pray. We also had to decide. So we even took a vote. Those that are for it, say aye. Those that are not for it, say nay. They enjoyed it. And this is like, who should we roster the person that will put the final lunch boxes into people's bags, or should we still leave it as, because right now, what we were doing before it was left open. They would just go down, do lunch boxes in the morning, and there's nothing I hate in my life like those rushed hours where you're rushing, because I will either forget something or we'll just make do with anything, and I hate it. Or we are rushing prayers in the morning, and I hate that. So when I said, okay, we need to make a roster for who will put lunch, all of them were like, no, mommy, we're fine. We always get to do. I'm like, no, you get to do it, but you don't do it in time. So we need to vote whether we should do it or not. So we made a vote. Of course, me and B will vote together. And all the four of them, they voted. None of them, all of them refused to vote. And then I looked at Nathan like this. Nathan voted with me. So we had only three of us. So I discovered that they that are B, they are in that place where they don't want any responsibility. They don't want to be taxed with responsibility. So I now said, no, as far as I'm concerned, by 7:20, we should be seated for our morning devotion time. And so it means that this vote is not necessary. There's a balance where I allow them to have their say, but there's a balance where as a mom, I want a balanced life during the week. So I need my head. I don't want to be shouting at them in the morning when we are rushing to enter the car for school. So I need them to understand that concerning this, 7:20 is the last hour. And if that has not happened, then there will be penalties. And as Mamo was mentioning, penalties in this house, and it is their sport activities because the way they love that thing. Me, you will not go. I will not pay, and I don't mind. The way they raised me back home in Nigeria was not useless. So if you want wage, I will not. It's true, and I worked for me. So anybody that says child abuse, do you know my 11-year-old? She's fond of saying that child abuse. Mommy, that's child abuse. It no concern me. It is still on my terms at this stage. So it's like, I need to be able to establish those key areas for them to understand that they are non-negotiable. Things are non-negotiable. There was this thing that Daddy said I should play for them yesterday. We found this video where a guy was talking about those that were born in 1980 being the last year that those that were born in 1980 were the last that listened to their parents and are the first to have to listen to their kids.
True.
So anybody born before then was listening to their parents. But from 1980, we discovered that the children we born want us to be the ones to listen to them. And it's not right. So during that tribe meeting is also when we find those kind of videos so that they are not seeing that it's mommy and daddy alone saying these things. They are seeing that this is what is obtainable anywhere in the world. You understand? So you have to establish a forum where they themselves will contribute to their own discipline. They themselves can see that, look, it's not working. Because if it's just you and hubby alone, sort of telling them, they get to that age where they feel, why should I listen to you? And as Mamo said, they are trained in this generation to question everything until proven. So you need to be able to bring them to that place where they are contributing to their own discipline. They are acknowledging themselves that, look, we are not doing well to mommy and daddy. If you don't engage them, the world will tell them that you are pushing things down their throats, or you are being too authoritarian, or you are being too disciplinary. You understand? So you need to involve them, because I've discovered that involving my kids in their own discipline, to be honest, it helps with my work-life balance too. So I'm not feeling like it is me that is supposed to do. They already know that they are supposed to do. And so from an early age, they are also learning responsibility, and it's not negotiable. Most of the times I tell them, look, mommy carried you, she pushed you into this world and took care of you when you didn't know anything. Now it is time for payback. Because I know, especially in the Western world, they leave you very early. My younger sister is, I think she's 30. She's still in my father's house. In Australia, a 30-year-old cannot be in your house. You can't see a 30, if a 30-year-old, maybe it's we that even migrants that are keeping our children longer, actually. But the normal thing in Australia, at 15, they've gotten a job, maybe at Macca's or Hungry Jack's. By the time they are 18, they finish uni, they started uni, they have another job by the side also to pay their school fees. So it's not like back home that we used to collect school fees from mommy and daddy. They cater for themselves. So that sense of dependence makes it difficult for you to manage them in the home. So if you don't start early, if you don't set the boundaries, if you don't sort of make sure that it becomes part of their being, then it looks like you're the one doing it. No, they have to do it with you. That's what's working for me so far.
Thanks for sharing, Elizabeth. Very, very helpful. And yeah, I've gained, I've actually taken some tips from that. Very, very helpful. I think it's also important for us to know our children and understand them, as well. Because what works for one child might not work for another child. So be just being able to balance it out and then putting it in prayer. God will help us. God will help us in this race.
Amen. Amen.
Does anybody have anything to add?
I'm just going to stop recording now. Some people are usually shy to speak while we record.